Do not take it for granted because you're going to see it come back over and over again. Don't say, well, this is chapter 1 and 2. I learned that, I can forget about it. No, everything from here on out in this course is going to build upon each other. So all these terms that we're going over, all these body planes, all these positions towards the end of the chapter, like I said, that is the building bricks, the foundation of everything else we're going to start learning when we get to the actual positioning aspects. So do take it very seriously, and heavily a vocabulary kind of based test next week. Not the only thing on that test, but a lot of vocabulary will be in this test. So we left off talking about the sagittal, the coronal, the horizontal, and the oblique planes. When we talk about planes, we're really talking about slices through the body. So if you imagine once again someone's taking a sword and slicing somebody in half in different directions, these are the body planes that we're talking about. In fact, that's why they use glass shards to demonstrate what we're talking about right here. So first what we're going to talk about is the sagittal planes. So a sagittal plane is going to pass vertically from front to back. In other words, if I have a slice of glass going through me, it's going to pass from front out my back and slice me in half, left and right portions. Let's see. Come up here, Cody. You're tall. Come up here. I'm going to demonstrate on you. So, I'm going to sheet of paper. If I'm talking about a sagittal plane, here's my glass. Vertical, first of all. Vertical means up and down. That's my slice of glass. It's going to pass from the front out the back of Cody. And if I slice them in this direction, what am I making? A left and a right portion. Y'all see that? That's a sagittal slice or a sagittal plane. Now, for the sagittal planes, we have a very specific one, and this is going to be very important when we get to positioning. It's called the MSP, or the mid-sagittal plane. What's that mean? What's in the word? It's the midline that divides the body, and the key word, equal, sorry, I'm going to close to your face, equal right and left halves. Now, we have a sagittal plane, which means we're slicing anywhere on the body, making left and right portions. Then we have a mid-sagittal plane, which is making that equal left and right portion. Keyword there is equal once again. Thank you. So I want you guys to really put a star on that because people miss this, even seniors to this day. They cannot identify a regular sagittal plane from an MSP or mid-sagittal plane. Keyword there once again is the equal right and left halves. And that's what we see right here. We're making that equal left and right portion versus if I put that slice anywhere else on the body, they're going to be unequal left and right portion. So this is a sagittal plane. This is a mid-sagittal plane. Does that make sense? So very, very important to know that concept. And we're going to use a lot of our centering, or a lot of our positioning and centering is going to revolve around that specific MSP or mid-sagittal plane. Now, what's the other one we're going to talk about next? What's in that picture on the bottom right? We're going to talk about the coronal planes next. So before I even go to the next slide, what do you think a coronal plane slice is going to be? In your own words.
Left and right.
Anterior, posterior.
Front and back slices. So sagittal, we're making left and right slices. Coronal, we're making front and back slices, or if we want to use the actual fancy terminology, anterior and posterior slices. Front and back, anterior, posterior. And there you have it, guys. So once again, it's a vertical slice from side to side, by the way. So I'm going in this direction now, side to side. And if I slice somebody from the side, let's see. Come up here, Shaheen. I'm going to use you this time. Come on. So stand and face the class. If I'm slicing in this direction from the side, what kind of slices am I making? A front slice, a front portion and a back portion, an anterior portion and a posterior portion. Now we have this specialized one once again, the MCP. It's another aspect of positioning. It's going to be very important. It's going to be a equal slice of anterior and posterior portions right through the middle. So when I slice directly in the middle of her body, it's going to be an equal anterior and posterior portion. Once again, the keyword there is equal, that mid-coronal plane. Anywhere else is just a coronal slice.
So how do you
right in the middle,
so
mid-coronal. Yes?
I have a question. It's hardly, the width is not too much. Is this possible to make, like probably cut it here and then it will be a coronal slice as well?
Correct.
So it will be a part of your skull also.
If that blade or that glass is in this direction, whether I go this way or this way, it's still making front and back slices. If I'm going this way, side to side. Correct. Good question. You have a seat. Thank you. So once again, make sure you know the difference between a regular coronal slice and a mid-coronal plane or MCP. Equal versus unequal slices. Front and back or interior and posterior sections. Once again, that's the same thing you see on the picture here. There's that mid-coronal, look at those equal anterior, posterior sections. If I'm going anywhere else in the body, it's just a regular coronal slice because they're unequal portions. We'll say it one more time, guys. Key word. You're going to see this question next week. I can't make it any more clear. Make sure you're looking for that word. If it doesn't say equal, it's a regular coronal or sagittal slice. If it says equal, it's MCP or MSP. Make sense? Hint, hint.
It's MCP and also MSP, sir.
Mhm. Those are the equal portions.
I see.
Now we have our horizontal planes. Now, this is that one I told you guys to write last time in class where it has different names. Horizontal plane can also go by the terminology of a transverse, axial, or cross-sectional plane. I'll put the word axial in red because that's the most common other term you're going to see in regards to this slice. Now this one is going to be moving at a right angle, making a, what we call a longitudinal slice or longitudinal axis. So if you imagine for a second that I had a big battle axe, just use this so I know like I was trying to write, I'll quit pulling y'all up here. If I had a big battle axe and I went and sliced this person in half in this direction, what's going to happen? I'm going to have an upper portion and a lower portion. It's going to be an axial or horizontal slice or plane. Or the way I like to remember it, because this is the one that we use probably the most, is axial in terminology. When I just say a battle axe, axial, what do you do when you chop down a tree? You make horizontal cuts. And when you chop that tree in half, if you look down at it, what does it look like? Big round shape like this, right? So creating superior, inferior, up, and lower slices or portions. So it's going to divide the body into superior, inferior portions specifically. Now you'll notice there's not a MHP or mid horizontal plane. That does not exist for this particular plane. They're just simply called horizontal planes no matter where you slice through the body, or axial planes. But do know all the different words you see those used interchangeably, all mean the same thing. That's what we see right here. Moving horizontally, superior, inferior portions. Coffee lovers out there. You ever had Turkish coffee?
Oh, yeah.
That's where it's at. Good stuff. My first time trying it. All right, and then the last type of plane we're going to talk about is what's called an oblique plane. Now, this is any time that we pass through a body part at any angle between the previous three that we have named. In other words, anytime I'm going in a diagonal motion, any kind of slice that's going diagonal is an oblique plane. It can be from any direction, any way, any of that slanted slice, any of those slanted slice, aside from the vertical slice, horizontal slice, coronal slice, anything else that's going diagonal is an oblique plane. That's what we see right here. Go through the body right here, that dark blue area right here. Probably the one we talk the least about is the oblique planes. Now all these planes, once again, when we're talking about, the reason that we learn these is these are going to be the basis, once again, for a lot of positioning that we do. We use these different planes, especially the MSP and MCP, for centering for our different body parts, different areas of body, especially what we're about to learn, the chest. The chest uses those planes very specifically. Make sure they're centered correctly to your IR, your image receptor. Make sure they're lined up correctly and you're getting that good optimal chest radiograph. So when you go to lab next week and start learning about chest positioning, you'll hear Mr. Fong and Ms. Bonilla talking about the MSP and MCP. You'll know what that is. That's how we're going to get that body positioned correctly for that radiograph. So these are some different slices right here. These are actually, three of these are MRI, two of these are CT. I think they might be all MRI images. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are these all MRI images? Yeah. not the expert on MRI images, Mr. Fung is. But based on what we just talked about, looking at these slices, what do you think A is in regards to a slice? What are we looking at there? What do you think?
It's a sagittal.
It will be a sagittal slice. Why? Can we tell what that is first of all? It's a knee. If I slice a knee in half, that would be a left or right portion that we're seeing right there. We're slicing it down this way, left and right portions. We're looking at it from the side, so to speak. So that's sagittal. What would this be? Letter B. Coronal slice. Coronal slice, so we're going in this direction. Front and back slices. What about C? It'd be a horizontal or axial slice. It'd be like a tree trunk. If you cut a tree in half, that'd be like if we're cutting the torso in half. We're actually looking at a knee there as well. That's a knee slice. And then here's whole portions of the lower limbs here. What would this be? That's coronal, because we're looking at it from the front and back portions once again. And then this one would be what? Sagittal. Make a little sense? What we're looking at there? All right, we do have two special body planes. We don't talk about these as much either, but you may see them come up in some questions every once in a while. We have what's called the interiliac plane and the occlusal plane. Now, the interiliac plane lines up directly with the iliac crest. The iliac crest are the tops of your pelvis. It's going to pass down like so. If the patient's on their side, in a decubitus position, which we'll talk about later, it's going to pass directly over the iliac crest at the level of L5. This is the L5 vertebrae right here. You know, our occlusal plane, that says L4, that's actually L5. Please correct that, don't write that down. That's a typo on my part.
This is L4 in the book as well.
Does it say L4 in the book?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Well,
it says the level of the
Level of
fourth.
fourth lumbar spine is
do
present.
they have this picture in your book?
Yes.
Yes.
Your book has a misprint. Either that or the picture's a misprint. Let me research that and I'll get back to you on that. Put a star on that. I'll make sure I get that corrected for you guys. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing on that. Sometimes there'll be inconsistencies in the books. Please point those out and we'll get that corrected. Occlusal plane, that's going to be the biting surfaces of the upper and lower teeth. When we have the jaws actually closed, a line will pass through the jaws. That's what we call the occlusal plane. And who can guess what area or what type of, try not to say the word here, what kind of area in medicine would use the occlusal plane?
Dentist.
Dentist, correct. You ever had x-rays at dentists where you bite down that x-ray film and it's very uncomfortable?
Yeah, but now they have the latest one that I did was quite.
Yeah, they're a little more comfortable than they used to be, but never very comfortable. That's going to use that occlusal plane. Now, we also do an x-ray in radiology called a panorex, which is an x-ray of the jaw and the teeth, and they bite on this little film, on this little area, and there's a film around their face. They're also using that occlusal plane to line that up properly. But please don't even forget, I'll find out about that interiliac plane and get that corrected. Either the picture's right or the text is right. One is right. We'll find out. And there's just those body planes one more time, guys. Same picture we already looked at. Sagittal, coronal, horizontal, and oblique planes. What is the sagittal plane that is making equal halves, by the way? And what is the plane that's making equal anterior, posterior halves? Mid-coronal, very good. Very good. What's another name for horizontal plane?
Axial
Transverse, very good. Or cross-sectional, very good. Very, very good. All right, so, where's my picture at? Here we go. What would this be?
Oblique.
Very good. Why is that oblique?
It's in an angle.
It's going at an angle. Y'all see that? You know those slanted slices? That's going to be an oblique plane. Very good. What about this right here?
This is horizontal.
Horizontal, or what's the other names again?
Axial and transverse.
Transverse and cross-sectional. Very good. Y'all see why that's an axial slice? Because we're making superior, inferior portions. Don't just get focused only on the torso. You'll see them use the torso a lot. That applies to our extremities, our head, everywhere in the body. We're talking about these slices. What about this one right here?
It's sagittal. Especially sagittal. Sagittal planes.
That's a sagittal slice, but what specific sagittal slice is that?
Mid-sagittal.
Mid-sagittal, because we got those equal left and right. See how it's in the center of the body? Be careful there. That's why I have to trip you up. That's that specific one because we're making those equal left and right portions. If that, whoops, so I'll wait for a trip on it. If I move that piece of glass over to the patient's right side, then it would just be a normal sagittal slice. But because it's directly in the middle, it's a mid-sagittal slice.
Scott, you say that a mid-sagittal slice as just a sagittal slice would be wrong, or
It depends on what the question's asking. So once again, most likely you'll see this in a contextual format. If they're using that keyword equal, you're going with mid-sagittal or mid-coronal. If you do not see the word equal in there, typically it's just a sagittal or coronal slice. People get messed up on that every single year, so be careful on that. Now what is this one right here? Mid-coronal. Y'all see why it's mid-coronal?
Equal.
Because we have the equal anterior, posterior portions on that slice. If I moved it a little bit forward though, it'd be just a coronal slice. Very good.
Sir, I don't understand this one though. The one with the balls?
This one here,
Is this the one you're talking about?
this is mid-coronal. Because we're making equal front and back slices.
And how can you tell that it's equal, sir?
Because it's directly in the center of the lateral portion of the body.
Kind of like a shadow, like feet.
Right, you see more of the body. See if you go through the body.
I think the shadow is sort of telling you that it's divided.
It's not really a shadow, it's just that's the posterior portion, that's the interior portion of the
I
body.
see.
We're going down the center of the body.
I see, sir.
But once again, most likely when it comes to these types of questions, at least from what I understand on your registry, they're using a contextual type question, not really a picture, and they're using that keyword equal. Equal.
Wait,
Yes.
so if it was to go front or back a little, it
Would
would
just be a normal coronal slice. Yes. All right, so we're going to move on to our body cavities now, which contain a majority or all, but most of all of our internal organs. We have two what we call great cavities in the body. There's the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity. We're going to break these down individually and list what the major organs are found within these cavities of the body. Now, abdominal cavity specifically has no lower partition that we call, but the lower portion is called specifically the pelvic cavity. And also the abdominal cavity can often be called the abdominopelvic cavity. So even though we classify two cavities, they have a little subcavity in there that's called the pelvic cavity that we're going to break down as well. But it still falls under abdominal cavity technically, which is why it's sometimes called abdominopelvic cavity. And this is going to be the majority of what we're learning this semester because we're going to learn all the anatomy within those cavities because we're focused on chest and abdomen this semester. All right, so thoracic cavity, first of all, what are the main organs it contains? Now, keep in mind, this is not all the organs found in the thoracic cavity. There's a lot more than just what you see listed here, but these are what we're going to call the main organs found within this particular cavity. Thorax refers to the area where the lungs are located. Therefore, we're going to have the pleural membranes, the lungs themselves, the trachea, the esophagus, the pericardium, and the heart and great vessels. That's the main organs, once again, that are found within the thoracic cavity. And like I said, there are a lot more than just that's what's listed there, but these are the main ones we're focused upon right now. So great test question. Which of the following are found within the thoracic cavity? You have to select all that apply. There might be a list of organs there. You'd want to pick out the ones that apply to that thoracic cavity. How many people here love multi-answer questions? Oh, you like them?
No, I don't.
I think you're the first person on the face of the earth that's ever told me that. That's very curious.
You'll get some of them right.
Well, because if I'm gonna study all of them and know all of them, then I'd rather pick all of the ones that I know. Then it's easier for me to be like, oh, this isn't right, and let her study.
Well, you can help us all out with these multi-answer questions. Because I tell you right now, I hate multi-answer questions. Why? I'm a massive overthinker. I'm a massive overthinker. And I second guess myself. But I'm going to teach you guys as we get closer to the test next week some strategies of how to do these type of questions. Because there are some test taking strategies to not trip yourself up on these multi-answer questions. Now, are you going to get these type of questions because Mr. Donahue's mean? No, you're gonna get these questions because the registry likes to ask these types of questions where you have to choose multiple answers. Unfortunately, those are coming up more and more. So we're gonna learn strategies on doing those types of questions as we move forward.
So we should
Maybe you can
expect,
help us all out.
is it possible that they enter something more than what are the main ones?
For now, this is all I want you to focus on. We're gonna build on this as we move forward, but for now, in this chapter, these are the ones I want you to focus on for thoracic cavity. And now that's the abdominal, yes.
On those questions, if you get one wrong, you get the whole question wrong?
Unfortunately, yes. So, I don't know how soon this is happening, so don't put your hopes on this, but the registry, the ARRT, is moving towards giving partial credit to questions, but they're not there yet. So don't count on that yet. So for now, it's all or none, unfortunately.
Well, then they shouldn't ask it.
I agree, but, it is what it is. Abdominal cavity. Once again, there are a lot more organs and major areas within the abdominal cavity than what you see right here, but for now, these are the ones I want you to focus upon. This will be our peritoneum, our liver, our gallbladder, pancreas, spleen, stomach, intestines, kidneys, ureters, and major blood vessels. Especially intestines there, keep in mind it does break down to small and large intestines, and there's a lot of little parts within that as well. But we're doing a more general overview for now. That's our abdominal cavity. And all these are going to be very important because we're going to start talking about what we call body habitus here in a little bit. And body habitus are basically the shape of your body. And depending on the shape of your body, these organs are going to actually lie in different areas of those cavities. For example, the stomach's going to be in a different area for almost everyone in this room because we all have various body sizes. That stomach's going to lie in different ways.
Which one of these, because they're equal of them, which one of them is the pelvic portion?
We're going to that next.
I see.
It's coming
Just
up.
on that.
Stay tuned, it's coming up next.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. One.
There you go.
Portion.
There's your pelvic cavity. So make note, this is not its own separate cavity. This is a portion of the abdominal cavity. It's a subcategory of the abdominal cavity. That's going to contain our rectum specifically. It's a portion of the large intestine, the urinary bladder, and only part of the reproductive system, not the entire reproductive system. Rectum, urinary bladder, and part of the reproductive system.
You said it's part of the abdominal?
Is a subcategory from the abdominal cavity, yes. It's not its own separate cavity. Keep that in mind.
That's included in abdominal cavity, right?
Say again?
It's included in abdominal.
It's
cavity.
included within it, yes. A lot of people just, they give it its own little separate
Yeah.
classification. I guess because they want to confuse us more, but.
So if he
you
asks
know.
a question like, what included in abdominal
I will
cavity?
specify if I'm looking for just abdominal cavity or pelvic cavity.
Okay.
Yes, I'll clearly specify that.
On the registry, they will fix.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. They'll be specific. And hopefully this is not how we're all feeling with the test next week. That's how I feel when I take tests. I get bad test anxiety, guys. I understand all this. That's why we're working together through all this. We're gonna figure out some ways to counter all that, make sure that you're good and comfortable and confident in taking these tests.
All the food delivered and tested.
All right, so divisions of the abdomen. So when we talk about divisions of the abdomen, make note that the most upper portion, or the most superior portion of the abdomen, is at the diaphragm, right under the lungs. Diaphragm is a muscle found under the lungs, helps you with breathing. And it's bordered inferiorly by what we call the superior pelvic aperture, or most commonly called the pelvic inlet. Pelvic inlet is this, let me get Mr. Bones out here. Pelvic inlet is this area right here, guys, right under the pubic symphysis. That's your pelvic inlet. So the abdomen is from the diaphragm to the pelvic inlet. That's what we're talking about. Superior portion, inferior portion down here. Then when we divide the abdomen, we further divide what we call quadrants and regions. There are 4 quadrants of the abdomen. There are 9 regions of the abdomen. So they each have their own specific names. I put quadrants in red because the registry will most commonly ask you about the quadrants versus the regions. Even though they're all important to know, quadrants are the ones that are asked about the most. And what do they ask? They ask what organs are found within each quadrant. That's what we're going to look at here next.
Can you pronounce that?
Superior pelvic aperture. But most commonly, they're going to use that term right there, pelvic inlet. All right, so there is our 4 quadrants right there. We have our right upper quadrant, our right lower quadrant, our left upper quadrant, and our left lower quadrant. I put in red the abbreviations, that's the ones that are most commonly used: RUQ, RLQ, LUQ, and LLQ. Now, if you don't know what these are, we're going to have a picture coming up next that shows you where those divisions are found. And once again, why do we have these? These are actually what we use to describe the locations of the various abdominal organs. They all fall within a specific quadrant. Some organs fall into multiple quadrants depending on the size, which you'll see here in a second. Put a big star by that because, boy, they love to ask about those quadrants on the registry. So, gold star question there. You will see that on your test next week. Questions about the quadrants.
So must know every organ in that quadrant.
That's what we're going to look at
Every
next, yes. And we'll show you what those look like, yes. I'll give you some sample questions here in a second. And there we have it right there, guys. There are 4 quadrants of the abdomen. Now, once again, you don't see all the organs here that are pictured. These are going to be the ones that are most commonly going to ask you about if they're going to ask you a registry-style question on quadrants and what organs are found within. So here we have them right here. We have our right upper, remember, anatomic position, like this person's looking at you. It's the patient's right, the patient's left, not your right and left. Be careful, because people make that mistake. Right upper, left upper, right lower, left lower. Now look at our organs here. We have the liver first of all. Now what quadrant is the liver found in? Let me ask you that first of all.
RUQ.
So everyone would have got that wrong
Right upper and left upper.
because you see how it overlaps over 2.
Yes.
We have the liver found in the right upper and the left upper. Now let me tell you how they can also ask you a question here. This is how they get tricky on these type of questions. Which quadrant contains the smallest part of the liver?
Left upper.
See how I changed that up? The smallest portion of the liver is in the left upper. The largest portion's in the right upper. But the organ as a whole overlaps both. Y'all see that? Same for the stomach, exactly. The stomach as a whole falls in what quadrant or quadrants? Right and left upper. The largest portion of the stomach falls where?
In the left upper.
The smallest portion falls.
In the right.
Very good. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just asking, like, would they have like a picture with that, or are we supposed to know?
They'll ask you just in a text format. Yes.
So we have to remember.
Yes.
That's on both sides.
Yes. But this is all going to be cyclical. It's going to be in your permanent memory, I promise you. It's going to be, you're going to be able to picture this in your mind as we move forward. Now, also when we talk about body habituses, that is of course going to change, because if we talk about a very skinny person, for example, his stomach's going to hang way down. Have you ever seen a skinny person's radiograph, their stomach's hanging very low, which we're going to look at that coming out soon. But when we talk about the registry, they're going to base it on the average body size. So they're not going to say, well, where would it fall for a small person versus a large person. They're going to say it as an average like this. These are the average locations where these organs fall. Now here's a great question. What quadrant or quadrants does the large intestine fall in?
All of them.
All of them, right? Because it goes all throughout the abdomen, absolutely. Now, we haven't went over the anatomy of the large intestine yet, but I'm going to name a few parts. Well, let me just review them real quick before I ask these questions. Cecum, ascending colon, left colic flexure, transverse colon, right colic flexure, descending colon, sigmoid colon, and then rectum right here. So I can ask a great question. What quadrants does the rectum fall within?
Right LQ and LLQ.
Right and left, lower. You gotta specify that lower, by the way. Where does the left colic flexure fall? Left colic right here.
So what's that for?
Anatomic position again. Left colic. I know we haven't went over all this anatomy yet. We're gonna learn all this, but left colic flexure, that's the little corner right there, the large intestine. That'd just be the left upper quadrant. Does that make sense, how these organs fall in different quadrants? Know this stuff right here, guys. Know these organs specifically. Once again, we have a lot more that fall in here. One more we can add, because I've seen this come up. Gallbladder specifically falls in the right upper quadrant. You want to write that down, the gallbladder. They do ask that one as well. Gallbladder falls in the right upper quadrant.
So what was that colic fracture? How do you
Colic flexure is the right, I'm sorry, the left.
Oh, how, is
left
it
colic flexure.
C-O-L-L-I-C?
It's right here. We're going to get to that later, so don't worry about that yet.
I was just pronounced it's a colic flexure.
Left colic flexure. We're going to get to that very soon, though, don't worry. We're going to hit all that anatomy really hard, so that's coming soon. All right, so we also have 9 regions within the abdomen. Not a big sigh. Yeah. Actually, don't worry because they rarely ask these. Now, we do need to know these by name, be familiar with them, but don't panic and feel like you have to memorize the 9 regions. I've never seen them ask a single question on the regions, only the quadrants. Now, do keep in mind, we do have 9 regions. Know that number, 9 regions, 4 quadrants. We'll say it again, 9 regions, 4 quadrants in the abdomen. Now, those superior regions are going to be what we call the right hypochondrium, the epigastrium, and the left hypochondrium. Don't break your brain too much on those. Focus on the red. I highlight stuff on purpose, by the way. Just saying. Yeah, I remember when I was at school, they made us memorize these as well. It was a nightmare. But luckily, they've moved away from these. We have our middle and inferior regions. This is also part of those 9 regions. Once again, we have the right lateral, the umbilical, the left lateral. In the inferior areas, we have the right inguinal, the hypogastrium, and the left inguinal regions. Yeah, this is me in school. I was trying to learn those. That's why I put that GIF there. It's a good depiction of how I felt trying to memorize those. But just know you have those major regions. You have the 9 regions. They're divided into superior, middle, and inferior. You know that number 9. Versus the 4 quadrants, do know the specific labels of those 4 quadrants and what organs lie within. Y'all doing okay? I'm not as panicky as my last class. Y'all are very serene and calm.
Lay inside your own
They're tricky. They're not. When you're not here, they're not serene. I got my happy face on right now. So
Okay. Hey, positivity. No, negativity is a lot more contagious than positivity, so we need more positivity out there.
Yeah.
Happy face, that's right. Good vibes.
I'm gonna go and try.
And there they are right there, guys. So be thankful once again. You don't need to know where those organs lie on the 9 regions, but if you're curious, that's where they all lie. Once again, know that there are 9 regions, and they have an inferior, middle, and superior portion. Imagine having to answer those. Probably the easiest one to remember though is umbilical because belly button, umbilical cord. All right, so review question here. Some good sample questions for you. Which body plane passes through the body from anterior to posterior and divides the body into equal right and left halves? Oh, here, all kinds of questions here. Equal right and left halves.
Mid-sagittal? Mid-sagittal?
Mid-sagittal. So be careful, guys. This is what I want y'all to practice. When you see a question like this, a lot of you defaulted to mid-coronal to probably sound the most comfortable. But make sure you read that question carefully. Look at your key words. Passes through the body, anterior to posterior. It's passing anterior to posterior this way, and divides the body into equal, keyword, right and left halves. How many of you read just that portion and picked an answer? I've been there too. That's how they trip you up in these questions. They're making sure you're reading the whole question. Does this say anterior posterior halves? No, it's just talking about how is it passing through the body. The halves are equal right and left halves, therefore mid-sagittal.
So for mid-coronal.
Isn't that dirty?
Very.
For mid-coronal, it'll say equal anterior and posterior halves?
Correct. This is an example of what the registry does to trip you up.
So, but
This is why we're
how is it
practicing this.
anterior and posterior when you're doing left and right? How is
It
it anterior?
passes anterior to posterior, but it cuts us in right and left halves. The coronal slices pass laterally. Keyword, it passes laterally, dividing the front and back halves.
And we'll do like a passes left.
Or it says passes left and right, yeah. That's why, guys, please read your whole question. Here's a test strategy. Write this down. I promise if you start doing this, you'll be successful in your tests. You always read a question 3 times before you answer it, especially in X-ray school. Always read a question 3 times before you answer the question. If you're like Mr. Donahue and you just see a word, you pick an answer right away, you're not going to do well. I used to do that in school all the time, messing me up on so many tests. But if you start reading your question slowly, 3 times, then answer, look for your keywords, you're going to be a lot more successful, I promise you. Don't overthink it. Go with your instinct. Don't change your answers on your tests.
And if you had
I
it 3
cannot tell
times
you.
with the time to read it, so the time is enough to read the question 3 times?
You're going to have 2 hours to take this test, yes. On your registry, you're going to have 3.5 hours to take your test, so you have plenty of time. So take your time. Guys, I'm telling you, as another chronic test answer changer, don't do that to yourself. I'm telling you, your instinct is almost always right. I have seen so many people screw up their tests because they go back, they take their test, they go back and review, and they say, oh, that looks a little better, that looks a little better, they start changing all their answers. It's not going to work for you. Your instinct is almost always correct. So go with it. Next question here. We just talked about this. In which quadrant of the abdomen is the largest portion of the liver located?
Left,
R-U-Q.
The left or is it right?
left, sir.
R.
Which part of the liver is the
Right,
largest
right,
portion of
Where's
the
the
liver?
liver?
R-U-Q.
Yeah, that's right.
Right
Is the
upper.
right,
Right
sir,
upper.
right upper corner.
Right upper. Right upper. Be careful. Know where those organs are on, left versus right. Anatomic position, guys. Anatomic position. As if the patient is facing you. Right upper quadrant. Vocabulary. This is from Monday. A detailed study of the body of knowledge related to the bones of the body defines what?
Osteology, sir.
Osteology. Keyword is osteo. Osteo means bone. Keyword was bones. Osteology, the study of bones. What is arthrology?
Study of
Joints.
joints.
What is pathology?
Study of disease.
Disease. Patho means disease. Arthro means joints. Osteo means bone. Anatomy is a study of all the bones and organs, of course, together. Another test strategy, by the way, guys, if you looked at this and you just went blank, you just have no idea what you're looking at, try to look at what doesn't fit. Work backwards. Which ones don't make sense? Eliminate the ones that don't make sense first. And even if you just eliminate 2, if you still have no clue what you're looking at, you just gave yourself a 50-50 shot at choosing the right answer. It's better to choose between 2 than 4. So work backwards. That's very helpful, trust me. Let's see where we're at. 9 o'clock on the dot. It's time for our first break. Take 15 minutes, stretch, get some coffee, get some water. We got a lot of terminology to start hitting here on the next few slides, so we'll get a lot coming at you. So 9:15, we'll start back up. 9:15.